The dirty deed. Scam on duct cleaning. Dirty ducts. How is it possible a system with one opening and one exit can generate so much dust and dirt you need to clean the ducts? And on top of that, your house is nice and clean inside. Now, in theory, the concept of duct cleaning is not a scam. The scam is how companies are using it to pull a bait and switch on you. The bait, $59 duct cleaning. Wow, that's amazing. Then comes the switch. Now, after they've already there, this part comes in all forms. But one of them is, oh, well, we only clean up to 6 supply ducts for that price. If you want all the ducts done, it's going to be a different price. Oh, and you want us to clean the grills too? Oh, well, that's more money. And, after everything is said and done, their price actually comes out to $200+ later. And typically those people that do that, those companies aren't even doing it the right way. To understand why we need duct cleaning, let's first talk about why the ducts actually need to be cleaned. Let's say we're talking about a standard typical air conditioning, furnace or air conditioning system. So we're going to have return ducts that go into the unit. We're going to have supply ducts coming out of the unit. So the return ducts are attached to pull air from the rooms, condition that air, and then push it back into those rooms from the supply ducts. Now, from the point that the air enters the return duct system to the point the air exits from the supply system, in theory, that system should be considered a closed system. However, due to poor installation by a lot of HVAC companies, there's more leaks in your system than a sieve. That allows dust, dirt, animal dander, microscopic pests to get into your system at the first point that it possibly can. Well, that typically is the return grill. From there, all those things can be pulled in from leaks from the ductwork itself. Now, the way air handlers and furnaces are designed today, they're required to have a less than 2% leak factor, which allows certain particles and whatnot to get into them. That's how they're designed at the factory. The issue is when you install the air handlers and furnaces, most of them need to come apart. One, if they're in an attic, it's much easier to get the furnace or air handler up there. But a lot of times, just for weight and whatnot, a lot of times they'll take the doors off, they'll pull the coil out and whatnot to make it a lot lighter for them to install it. Well, most HVAC companies aren't putting these back together properly, which then turns that 2% into 5 to 10%. So that ups your potential leak factor. Now from there, the air goes through that air handler or furnace into the supply duct. The air is passing through the supply duct, making its way to go out the grills that go, the supply grills that are in the individual rooms. Now, I know what you're thinking. Wait a minute. I understand if I'm pulling air through the return, how I can create a negative pressure and pull dirt and dust in. But wait a minute. Why, if the supply duct is positive pressure, why do I worry about dust and whatnot getting in there? Wouldn't that just push that out? Yes, in theory. However, if a duct system is not designed properly and it's not installed properly, you actually can create some areas of like a vacuum, a suction, a negative pressure in some areas. And if you have a leak, a small, even a tiniest leak in that area where negative pressure is being pulled, where you're creating that little vacuum almost, you can pull in attic, dust, dirt, particles, the particles that we're talking about, also allowing microscopic pests that can get in there. So the biggest question is, okay, how do we stop this? Well, right now, I don't know of any duct system or any system as a whole that is perfectly sealed. However, using some of the suggestions I'm going to give you here, along with the right HVAC company doing the installation, you can minimize the amount of particles that can get into the system. Now, the first thing is putting a filter at the very first point that particles can get into the system on the return grill. So if you have one big return grill, obviously we're going to put a filter there. But some houses, if they're designed properly, they're going to have a return grill. If it goes back to the air handler, a return grill in every room. Now, you may have the little transfer grills above the doors. Can't put filters in those. You may have a jumper duct that goes from the room out into the hallway. Not work. Now, that duct can get dirty, but that duct getting dirty won't affect because the air is still being pulled from the house itself. So it's not as important, but yes, air can pass through there. So maybe just a cheap filter grill or something, or filter in there. But the standard grills, the return grills in the rooms, the ducts go all the way back to the air handler, putting a filter in there. Now we're into the duct system. Well, if the duct itself has leaks, now, even though I've already passed that filter, I'm going to start pulling in dust and particles and whatnot from the ducts itself. Now, this part, I recommend that you get a licensed, qualified, make sure you go on Google, and they have lots of 5-star Google reviews, testing company to come out and do your duct leakage test and to seal it. Now, when I was doing duct leakage testing, what I would do is I would hook up the device and I would put a harmless smoke to go into the system that would then pressurize into the duct system. And somebody would go up in the attic and they would look at the duct work, whether it was supply or return, and they would be able to see where the smoke was coming out, and they could go to that spot and they could seal it and tape it and mastic it or do whatever they needed to do to help reduce the amount of leaks. Now, the more that you get rid of and seal, the better it's going to be. Now, it goes through the return. You've sealed that up. Now it gets to the air handler. Having a filter at the bottom of the air handler or furnace is good. The issue there is the bigger the filters, the less restriction. But if we have super high efficiencies in the bottom of the air handler, it doesn't allow us to have a bigger, because most of the air handlers, if you put it right at the bottom, it's a specific size, 20 by 20 or whatnot. And if you try to go with a high efficiency filter like a MERV 13, like, you could cause a greater restriction than what the duct system and the air handler can handle based on how it was designed. So we've stopped some of the particles going into the return. We've sealed the return up, so we've stopped particles coming in from there. We get to the air handler. We have another good filter. We're stopping more particles there. Now we get to the air handler or furnace. Now, once the air goes into the air handler furnace, remember we talked about it not being put back together, having leaks, cracks, crevices. So what needs to happen is, this is something you can do even as a homeowner, is going and sealing that air handler up. If it's on a platform in the garage, making sure that it's caulked properly around the bottom, making sure that you take tape, usually metal tape that you can get at Home Depot or Lowe's, that has a metal surface and then has a really sticky surface on the other side. Then you peel the backing off and you put it on. And the cool thing is you use like a little squeegee to squeegee the metal tape down to create a better seal. And then you just tape every little crack and crevice that you possibly can, so that the air going into the air handler is coming directly through the return and not being pulled from anywhere else in the attic, the garage, or anywhere outside of where it's going to come through that filter. Very important. Now, one thing you have, if you're thinking about getting a new air conditioning system, is try to look for a manufacturer that has an air handler that is positively pressurized. And what I mean by this, like Trane has what's called their Hyperion air handler, where the fan is at the bottom. So the air is being pushed through the air handler, which creates a positive pressure. So if there are any little leaks in the air handler, again, you're pushing air out. And because it's just a rectangular shape and there's not a lot of twists and turns or anything, or not any twists and turns, you're not going to have the same problem as possibly a supply duct that could have poorly installed, which could still create a negative pressure. So this positive pressure pushes the air through the system. So if there are any leaks, it's going to push air out, and hopefully you won't have any. But still, those need to be still taped and sealed properly. All right, so we've gone through the air handler furnace. Now we're entering the supply ducts. And when I talk about how a supply duct can cause issues, as the air goes through, if you have air flowing at a velocity of, let's say, 600-700 feet per minute, and I take a branch duct and I route the branch duct back and around, what can happen is, as the air passes through past that supply duct, you can create a vacuum in that duct, which could then cause, now before the duct, because what will happen is the air will pass through it, it goes to the end of the duct system, it pressurizes and then works its way back. But as that air is flowing across there, you can potentially create a negative pressure, a vacuum in that, which could cause leaks or particles and whatnot to get through. So if all that is done properly with the right filters, you should have very few particles entering the system. Will it be perfectly sealed? No. Are you still going to need duct cleaning? Yes. There are going to be times, now it could be 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, whatever. It could be a period of time where now you're just lengthening that before you need to have the ducts cleaned. Now, be sure to find a reputable company to do the duct cleaning. Don't look at these things online and $59 and wow, I got to call them out, and they come out and they do things to get set up so that when you finally tell them, oh, it's not $59, it's $320. Well, they already have everything set up. Their truck's there. You've already planned your day and you're like, just fine. Go ahead and do it. Don't do that. Also, is depending on the type of duct system you have, like a flex duct system or duct board, fiberglass duct board or metal duct. But with the flex duct system, be careful, because the duct cleaning devices that are out there use a brush. Now, it's a soft bristle brush, but it's attached to a motor that spins a cable that the brush is attached to. Now, flexible duct is, yes, it can be pretty strong based on how it's designed, but it's not strong for little items to nick across the surface of the flexible duct. So if somebody is not properly educated and they use a duct cleaning device with this brush on there, they can end up damaging that flexible duct very easily, and you won't know it. But what happens now is now they have created an even bigger problem by having this brush cleaning device in there. I'm not saying everybody can't do it on a flex duct. I recommend against it. I recommend that it be cleaned in other ways. And I'm sure there's other devices and stuff out there now that can be used. But just be careful on how you do that. Now, if you have duct board or you have metal duct, the brush is a beautiful device and it works really good. They have one of the big brands is called Roto Brush. I would also use a company that has a duct camera. So when they come out, that they have the camera, they put it into the individual branch ducts or trunk line, and they show you not just one or two issues, but they show you all the locations so you can truly see how bad your duct system is. Here's something I strongly recommend. Never agree to have anyone do the work while they are pitching you. Wait. Sleep on it. Research them again. Okay, you got 3 people. You found one you think is really good. Research them again. Check the price. Check all the fine print. Make sure you do your due diligence. I know it's not a huge cost, but it could down the road. If they damage that duct system, that flex duct system could end up costing you thousands of dollars to repair or replace.
So that's duct cleaning. Done right by the right people, it really is a good thing. But here's what I want you to walk away with. The steps we covered today, filtering, sealing, choosing the right company, those can stretch out how often you ever need it, and sometimes keep you from needing it at all. That's money in your pocket and cleaner air for your family. If there's a topic you want us to dig into next, drop it in the comments. I read them. Thanks for watching, and take care of those homes.